What's up, friends? Welcome back to KimmyDTV, a place where nurses and aspiring nurses come to achieve academic, career, and life success. In this video, we're going to be talking about the difference between working in the hospital and working in the nursing home, okay? So I'm going to preface this video by saying I've been an LPN for about 8 years, and most of my time I was working in a nursing home, but I also worked in other settings. And if you're interested in more content with LPN life, check out my array of videos in my channel, okay? They're still relevant today, even though they're a couple of years old. And I have been an RN for about maybe 14 months now. I graduated November of 2020, and I work as a psychiatric RN working in the hospital, okay? So this video, I'm going to be talking about the difference between working in the hospital and working in the nursing home, because while I was in RN school as an LPN, I always wondered in my head, I wonder how, like, what would be the major difference between working in the hospital and working in the nursing home. And I feel like a lot of people said like how it would be to work in the hospital. Not a lot of people have that compare and contrast between working in the hospital and working in the nursing home, especially if you were LPN before, working mostly in the nursing home. Okay guys, so this is going to be a compare and contrast video. And I also want to say that, yes, there are some LPNs that work in the hospital. I'm not saying that you can't find a job working in the hospital as an LPN. There are some LPNs who work in the hospital. It does depend on your state. Yeah. But these are the differences between working in the hospital and working in a nursing home. Okay, let's go. So the first thing I can say is the patients. So basically in the hospital, you have different kinds of patients of different kinds of ages. So you work with young people, you could work with elderly, you could work with middle-aged adults, young adults. You work with all different kinds of ages. In a nursing home, you could work with different ages too, but the majority of patients you see are elderly patients. And you also see young people too, unfortunately, especially if they like just suffered and some kind of trauma. Yes, they can be in the nursing home as well. So I feel like working in the nursing home can be a little bit more depressing. And remember, I'm coming from a psych hospital point of view. Working in a nursing home can be a little bit more depressing in that sense, because of the fact that they are actually more understaffed, I feel like, than the hospitals. That's the number one difference I've noticed, is that when you work in a nursing home, if you ever see nurses, I was one of them, who are mad after work. They complain about their feet hurt. They have to stand on their feet. Well, that's because a lot of times they have to give medications to 40 residents and no one is helping them, or they have to, on top of that, they have to do treatments. If there's no treatment nurse, they have to do paperwork. If a patient falls, if there's an admissions, forget about it. So a lot of times there's no support. Management don't want to help them. They just want to, I don't know what they're doing, but a lot of time in a nursing home, like there's just a lot of work, a lot of physical work, a lot of physical labor. Even though you're a nurse, sometimes if there's no CNA around and a patient, and there's nothing wrong with providing ADLs for patients, but when you have all this medication to do, you have insulins, you have family, you have this and that, sometimes you have to insert your hands and help out with the patient care too, and that could be physically gruesome on the body. So, or if you're standing all day giving medications, that could be hard on your back, that could be hard on your feet. So yeah, in terms of physicality, I could say working in a nursing home is harder than if you work in a psych hospital. Okay, psych hospital. So I would say that's the number one difference I can say. Another difference is that if you work in a nursing home, the patients stay there long term, meaning you have more stable patients. That means you will know your patients. You will know John wants his insulin at 8:45, not 9 o'clock. He gets grumpy around 12 to 6. He wants his food cut up this way. Oh, this parent comes around this time. They blah, blah, blah. So You know, you get to know your patients, so in a sense your job can kind of feel like you're running on autopilot. Like in the first few days, of course, it will be hard, but once you get in the hang of it, you may feel like you're running on autopilot. You could come to work, I'm just kidding, but you may feel like you could work on autopilot, but you still have to be careful because medication errors can still occur, but you feel like you're walking on autopilot, because for the most part, patients are stable. Yes, I've seen patients cold in nursing homes. Yes, you know, patients have fallen and this and that, but for the most part, patients are extremely stable in the nursing home. However, in the hospital, first of all, the hospital is a revolving door. In the hospital, we treat acute conditions, meaning when the patient is at the worst of their worst, that's when they come to us, and we don't keep them for long. The average stay for a hospital is from about 3 to 10 days, 10 days max. So, you know, when they come in, they don't stay for a long time. So what does that mean? That means that you have, as the nurse, have the responsibility to get to know your patients quickly. And that could be very hard, especially if you have many admissions, many discharges, many things like that happening. So like if you decide to be a charge nurse like I am in the psychiatric hospital, that's another thing you have to think about, is that, you know, in a sense you have more responsibility, because sometimes you could have a lot of discharges. The max I've had is 7 discharges, and that's not a joke, because you're not just doing discharges all day. You're not just doing paperwork all day as a charge nurse. You have to watch your MILU, okay, because things can pop off, like especially depending on the patient population, meaning their age, especially if it's the kids, or especially if the floor that you're working on is highly acute. Highly acute meaning they could be highly psychotic, and you know, they could be highly combative, and you know, mix them all together. Then sometimes you do get fights erupting, you do get this, you do get that. It all depends on who you're working with too. It really all depends on your team, like your MHT, that's what we call it here, mental health technician. It depends on like how well you're working with them, or how well they're good at doing their job. But at the end of the day, you are the captain of the ship, and if something pops off, everybody looks at you as a charge nurse. They're like, oh well, why didn't you see that, or why didn't you do this and do that? Well, I had all this paperwork to do. So that's another thing. When you're working in the hospital, because the patients can be so different, because the patients range from different ages, and you know, everybody has their own different likes and dislikes, their personalities, what they like, what they don't like. Like I'm telling you guys, the quicker you learn your patients, the quicker your shift will go easy for you. So that requires skill, you know. And not only that, if you're working in the kids unit, you gotta get to know the parents too, because if the parents feel like you don't care, trust and believe, they will have you on the phone for 2 hours to make sure that, you know, everything is going okay. And I mean, I don't blame them, because that's their baby in the hospital, but I'm just saying, you have to do all that while, you know, dealing with emergencies that may occur, dealing with other emergencies that may occur in any area of the hospital where you have to run and help other nurses, dealing with patients who come up and tell you, well, I'm not gonna say it on here, I don't want to get flagged, but telling patients coming up to you and telling them that they feel like hurting themselves, and you have to, you know, deal with that right away, because that's urgent, you know, or, you know, therapy and stuff like that. It's a lot. It could become a lot. It could become very overwhelming. So just, you have to be on it. When you're in the hospital, that's one thing I could say, you have to be on. You have to be on. When I mean on, I mean up here. Like, you can't really be on autopilot. I mean, yes, a lot of the paperwork is going to be the same, but you're not going to always have the same set of patients. I can't tell you how many times I've come in, I've relieved my night nurse, there's 5 patients, okay, by the time I leave, there's like 16 or 17, or it could be vice versa, because admissions really love to come during the night. Or I would come in with a full house, and then by the end of the shift, I've discharged more than half of my patients. So things are always changing, always evolving. So you have to be careful. You have to double check your work, because it can be very stressful. It can be very hectic. You could have a lot of workload, and especially if you don't have help that day, especially if, you know, you don't have help, it's really hard. Speaking of help, let's talk about teamwork. I could say that teamwork, let's talk about teamwork and drama. Let's put that in the same sentence. I could say in the nursing home, there is way less teamwork and there is way more drama. I have no idea why. I think because most people working in the nursing home, no offense, I feel like that's the reason why, are there for a paycheck. I feel like most people in the nursing home, they are not passionate about the elderly, and on top of that, working with the geriatric population, it could be very taxing. It could be very difficult, but a lot of people are just there for the paycheck. They don't really care about the patient, so they get angry and they take it out on you, they take it out on the others. So there's a lot more petty little drama, like just the stupidest drama ever in the nursing home. Like, that's the thing, like there's a lot of little petty dramas, and it's just like, but why? Like, it's like when you think back, you're like, it was so stupid. And the teamwork is like next to nothing. Not a lot of people are, I mean, when I started, there was not a lot of people who helped me. And you know, when I came to Texas, I'm not gonna lie, especially when I did an assignment in Fort Worth, the people were more helpful. Like when I asked them to do stuff, and I'm like, wow, you're actually helpful for me, knowing that I'm a travel nurse and I'm making more money than you. So, you know, that was nice. But for the most part, when you work in a nursing home, a lot of people are every man for themselves kind of mentality. Oh my God, guys, it's so hot. I want to open this door, but I don't want the wind to make noise, so I'm gonna hurry up this video. But you know, a lot of people are like every man for themselves kind of in a nursing home, and you could tell they're not passionate about it, and they're mad and they're angry. Whereas in the hospital, yes, you can have drama between people. Yes, there have been drama, there have been gossip. You know, that's everywhere you go. And I think that's every job. But it's not as profuse as in the nursing home. In the hospital, you do have drama, you do have people pettiness, but it's nowhere the amount of drama in the nursing home. And another thing in the hospital is, I think there is more teamwork. It really depends on where you work, I guess. But I feel like, from my experience, by the grace of God, knock on wood, there have been a lot of teamwork amongst staff of the same ranking, I would say. What I mean by that is, if I'm a staff nurse and you're a staff nurse, you're probably going to help me. Or if I'm a staff nurse and you're an MHT or mental health technician, you're probably going to help me. And I'm going to leave it at that. I'm gonna let y'all read between the lines. But yeah, and again, I'm talking about from my experience. Every hospital is different, every facility is different. You may find wherever you go, some people are really willing to help you, but some places you may go, you may find that management isn't willing to help you. So it really just depends. But I would say in a hospital, people are there because they want to be. They have a goal. They actually have, like, they just have a real goal that they're working towards. I'm not saying people in nursing home don't have goals, but I'm just saying, like, they actually want to be there. You can see them do their work with all their heart. Like, I've worked with many mental health technicians who have done their work with all their heart. I mean, talking about bringing music, like guided imagery, like working so hard on their goal groups, like really talking to the patients, taking the time. And I'm like, wow. You know, and they don't have to do that, but they